All right. Sorry for the awkward intro here, but trying to do something different tonight. Well, it's not super different. We have done it before, but a long time ago. But I just need a few seconds to set some stuff up, so just give me 1 sec. Yo, Skills, what's up, man? How you doing? Just give me 1 sec. And then we're going to get right into everything. Almost ready. Alrighty. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do the week 40 celebration stream, which I was supposed to do a long time ago. And so what I used to do is every 10 weeks of fantasy distractions, I would do a basically like a recap stream. Excuse me. I did it for the first 10 weeks, then I did it for the first 20 weeks, and then I did it for the first 30 weeks, and then on the 40th week I didn't do it, and then I didn't do it for the final 10 either. So what we're going to be doing this week, we're going to do the week 40 recap, and then we're going to do the week 50 recap. And then we're going to probably do some recap streams for Fantasy Shorts Season 1, all because I am doing... The brand new season of Fantasy Distractions is going to start on May 19th. So I need to tie up any loose ends with season 1 as far as these recap streams go, because I want to do them again for the second season. So in order to have it, like, you know, my OCD is really the factor here, but in order to have everything cleaned up and ready to go for the new season, I need to do the ones that I missed. Chilling, how you and the fam? I'm doing good, Skills. We just moved like 2.5 weeks ago, basically. Maybe 2 weeks now. 3 weeks? I don't know what it's been. It feels like time is going really fast. But yeah, we moved out to Long Island, like a little further out from where I was before. But we're doing good, man. I hope you're doing good. But yeah, so we're gonna do it like we did the old style. Some things have changed, other than being in a new house, like I just mentioned. My hair is shorter, a little shorter than I wanted it to go, but that's a story for another day. And then that's why my room is a mess because of the move, and I don't use green screen anymore, so we're not gonna have the Fantasy Distraction logo behind me like we did the first 3 streams that we did, and then yeah, other than that, we're gonna watch all the fantasy distractions from fantasy distraction 31 through 40. We're gonna watch them here live, and then we're gonna talk about them. The thing is, when I did this the first time, it was like, like they were fresh. I like as soon as the 10th week happened and the 10th fantasy distraction came out, like I think it was that night. I think I was doing them that night. So like 10 would come out, and then that night I would do the recap stream for week 10. So like all the first 10. And then rinse and repeat for the rest. And like during that time, like I'm trying to be a little more aggressive with writing them and getting them recorded ahead of time for season 2. But when we were doing season 1, there were times where I would literally like write the fantasy distraction the night before it was supposed to come out, record it myself, or get somebody to record it real quick and then release it. Or I would get the recordings really late and release them like the following day. Like let's say they were coming out on, I think they were coming out every Monday at the time. Our new day is going to be Friday for them, but so they were coming out every Monday. Sometimes I would get the recordings like Sunday night and have to slap everything together for Monday, and then we would do can't even claim my hair flips. I know, man, I'm sorry. We'll grow it back out. My hair grows very fast, so it'll probably be long by like next week again. But yeah, so since we were doing it that way, like everything was really, really fresh in my head. And like now that it's been like almost 2 years since we did the first season, a lot of these are not going to be fresh in my head anymore. So I should still remember a lot of the behind the scenes type stuff that we used to do, like if there's any like stories tied to that story. But I might be like refreshing my memory on them as we're watching them together. So it'll be interesting. I don't think the stream will be like as long as maybe the other ones for that reason. I know some of those streams we had Jake come on with me, and they would be like a little longer because of that. But I think tonight we're just gonna kind of cruise on through. Yeah, Jake is in the YouTube chat, but yeah, I'm like 90% sure they said you could do both now, but I'm gonna just try not to refer to both, just in case. See if we can fly under the radar a little bit. All right. Anyway, all right, we're just gonna jump right in. The first one is Zayla. It's a pretty good one. This is with Sasselia. So what I'm gonna do is actually hold on. I'm gonna start playing it. Let me know if the volume is good. I mean, I have it maxed out.
Rumors on Fenrir spread far and fast. Just about anyone who's been alive long enough on this continent knows.
Oh snap! That's gonna be the problem with doing both. Yo, thank you for the sub, Jake. I appreciate it, man. I wonder if I will get copyright claimed on YouTube for this. I didn't even think of that. There's a lot of things I was like, oh yeah, this is gonna be smooth, this will be easy, whatever. That now that I'm actually doing it, I'm like, how does that work? All right, after Glorious, we'll check the volume on this. Thank you for that sub though. Let's see. You guys let me know if the volume is good on this, if you guys can hear it.
Rumors on Fenrir spread far and fast. Just about anyone who's been alive long enough on this continent knows that. A certain rumor about a mercenary in Brexton is how I ended up here, in the Valley of Philip. As a mercenary myself, it was common to hear about the happenings in Brexton. You see, Brexton is primarily a town for mercenaries and the best place to get work. At least that's how it used to be. Some guy named Birch started snatching up all the important...
Classic Birch. Were you guys able to hear that? It was probably kind of low. I'm assuming it should be pretty good because people can just adjust the volume. Like I have to adjust the volume myself, but I also had my volume very low. Jake, our skills, if you guys are still in the chat. Any were you guys able to hear the thing I just played or no? Just want to make sure everything is good before we start. It was good for me. All right, thank you, skills. All right, so I'm gonna mute myself. We're gonna full screen the video and then we're gonna talk about it. I have my volume up though, so don't trust me. Yeah, I think either way, like people should be able to adjust it. It's not like so low that like you would have to like max settings or anything. All right, I will be right back. We're gonna list fantasy distraction number 31, which is about Zayla, and then we'll talk about it. All right.
Rumors on Fenrir spread far and fast. Just about anyone who has been alive long enough on this continent knows that. A certain rumor about a mercenary in Brexton is how I ended up here, in the Valley of Philip. As a mercenary myself, it was common to hear about the happenings in Brexton. You see, Brexton is primarily a town for mercenaries and the best place to get work. At least that's how it used to be. Some guy named Birch started snatching up all the important jobs and terrorizing the other mercenaries there. It comes as no surprise to me that the town itself turned on him. The other mercenaries banded together to stop his reign of terror, but unfortunately for them, they fell short. Birch proved to be too much for them to handle, and it might be some time before the population in Brexton goes back on the rise. Who knows? Maybe this is a good thing for the non-mercs living in Brexton. Could turn into a normal town now. The state of the town isn't the point of the story. The point is that I was the lookout in the Valley of Philip when another group of mercenaries joined forces to wipe out Birch. It seemed like a plan with no holes in it, but we soon learned the plan was riddled with them, because while we expected to ambush Birch and Birch alone, rumors being spread failed to mention that Birch wasn't flying solo anymore. I remember laying there, as quiet as possible, on a hillside in the valley. Our group got there fast as the Valley of Philip wasn't too far from Brexton, and this seemed like the perfect opportunity to catch Birch unaware. The threat that Birch had on mercenary work across all of Fenrir was enough to make this job worth a lot of money, and our group did not want to squander the opportunity to cash in. Our plan was foolproof, honestly, near perfect in every way. The design of the valley made it the ideal place to subdue Birch. We had ropes dug into the ground and a spot marked where the ropes could converge and catch Birch just long enough for multiple nets to shoot out and tie him up. We knew of Birch's stature, so of course some nets weren't going to hold him down, but we figured our men holding the ropes and the nets being a distraction, we could run in and fill Birch with enough stab wounds that even he wouldn't survive. Sure, it wouldn't be pretty, but we'd get the job done. At least it would have. Birch arrived on the scene of our trap and everything was set in place. He was alone walking through the valley and mere inches away from the spot we marked on the ground. I readied myself to give the others the signal, but Birch came to a sudden stop. He started to massage his own neck like he was sore or it was bothering him, and then he started stretching his arms. He was preparing for something, and that meant bad news for us. Then I heard a swoosh noise behind me. I gulped as I slowly turned around, and standing there was a tall woman with long black hair. She had a dark blue leather outfit that was tight to her skin, and a witch's hat that looked as if it would barely fit on her head, but somehow looked snug. She had her arms folded and was looking past me completely as if I wasn't standing there. Her eyes were locked on Birch. I would have remembered someone like this in our group for this mission, so she definitely was not one of ours. I went to ask her a question, but she spoke before I could. "Is that him?" she asked. "Is that the Brixton Butcher? He's a lot smaller than I thought he would be." I went to stupidly explain that it was because he was just really far away, but then Birch walked forward and took the bait. I quickly gave the signal, which was simply raising a torch I was holding, and our men pulled the ropes and activated the nets. Birch simply stood there and let everything hit him. I waited for the mercenaries we gave the responsibility of running up and stabbing Birch. I think I stopped breathing in that moment as I waited. But they never came. I looked down at their designated spot and saw a small hooded figure standing over their bloodied bodies. The poor mercenaries tasked with holding Birch with the ropes soon realized how awful an idea this was, as they were now tied to the Brixton Butcher himself. They entered into a tug of war with the beast of a man, and he pulled them in until they were close enough to grab. I can still hear the sound of their bones breaking. The hooded person I saw decimate our mercenaries in hiding walked over to Birch as she cleaned her daggers of blood. Birch had a sadistic smile on his face as he joined her. The two looked over in my direction. "Not the wisest band of mercenaries," the witch behind me said. I turned to face her. "You're lucky," she continued. "Birch has this thing where he wants to leave one person alive. Something about it being helpful when building our legend. If most people in Brixton were dead, who do you think was spreading the rumors about where Birch would be next?" That was my idea, and despite what Birch or Luxie tell you, it was a good one. "So who am I, you ask?" She playfully moved her right hand and fire danced around it, then made a similar motion with her left hand, but this time lightning crackled around her fingertips. "Triton-born, Ascar raised. Free some, leave the rest blazed. Here one moment, gone the next. Master of magic, queen of the hex. Dangerously violent, fashionably dressed. Zayla, the witch that Eden blessed." Or so that annoying little poet says. Despite how annoyed she was by the rhyme, she did seem quite into it. "Don't ever forget who we are, and pray you never see us again." Zayla stepped toward me with a slight blow on the torch. Its flame went out. I closed my eyes thinking she would do something to harm me, but when I opened them, she was gone. I frantically turned around, and Birch and Luxie had also vanished, leaving me alone with the corpses in the valley, and only this story to share.
Alrighty. Oh, hey. What's up, Stace? Yeah, so that one I remember pretty vividly. I'm putting together like this little like teaser video for season 2, and that little rhyme that Zayla does is in it. So I actually listened to this one not that long ago. It's one of the shorter like ow, I just hit my elbow on my desk. One of the shorter main fantasy distractions, because like the fantasy shorts are usually like anywhere between like 3 to 5 minutes long, and then the fantasy distractions, like the normal fantasy distractions, they're usually like anywhere from like 7 to 10 minutes long, and this one lands like close to 6 minutes, so it's definitely one of like the shorter stories that we've done. But I had plans to do a lot with these three, with Birch, Zayla, and Luxie, but we never got to do a standalone Luxie one. But I also kind of felt like she didn't need a standalone one. Yo, what's up, Matt? How's it going, man? I feel like she didn't need a standalone one because she's kind of like the quiet, like, assassin type. So I think her not having her own adds to like the mystery of her a little bit. But I still might do like a fantasy short or something with her in the future. It's just that in the new season we're doing a lot of like wartime stuff, and they are a little bit involved in what's going on. So I'm not going to do too many standalone stories with them in it. Great, good to see you back. Happy to be back, man. I'm trying to be aggressive with the streaming stuff for this this month and next month. So hopefully it's a lot of content coming. But yeah, so that one was Hold on, I'm just trying to open up something on my phone real quick, if it'll let me. Okay, but yeah, let's see how many times I accidentally hit my desk during the stream. That's twice already. Yeah, not too much to talk about with that one. I love the voice that Sasselia does for Zayla. I think Sasselia is streaming right now. So last I knew she was streaming. So definitely go give her a follow and check her out. And yeah, not too much to really talk about with that one. Pretty straightforward. Don't mess with Birch is basically the story. And Zayla is kind of like the one coming up with the plans for them. Like they kind of form together without much of a plan of what they would do next. And then she's the one that's kind of like, well, what if we fool people into thinking like we're gonna be here and people should ambush us, but like we're the ones telling them to come ambush us, you know? So little fun one, pretty standard. I do like those characters though, so definitely not the last we will see of them. And yeah. The rhyming stuff is I always give the rhyming stuff to Sasselia though. I think the only like stories we've had with rhyming in it, other than Drew, which was Fantasy Distraction number 8, which I read. Other than that one, I think anything that's had any kind of rhyming in it, I've given it to Sasselia. I don't know why. No reason in particular, but it just always seems to land that way. All right, so the next one is actually, I didn't even realize this was so soon. But the next one is actually voiced by, oops, not that one. This one's actually voiced by Innocent, but guest written by Snidgy. So this was a pretty special one. She actually requested Innocent to read it specifically, if I remember correctly. So this one, I probably won't have too much to add as far as like behind the scenes stuff, because it was Snidgy who wrote this one, but it takes place in the Deadlands. It was a story that Snidgy was working on. I had asked her if she wanted to guest write anything, and she was already working on this story. So we took the story that she had and just kind of made it work with the Deadlands in our planet of Fenrir that the fantasy distractions take place in. So yeah, let's listen to it and then we'll talk about it. Not, like I said, probably not gonna have too much input to put in here. I kind of wish I would have realized this one was coming up so soon. I guess it makes sense that it would land here though, because 41 through 50, I think I read like 6 out of the 10 because we were getting near the end and I couldn't always get everybody to come on and read stuff for us. So it does make sense that hers would land here, and I should have thought about that and maybe had her come on and talk about it. But maybe we can have her, maybe we could do like a separate video where me and her just talk about it. But yeah, enjoy Innocent's amazing voiceover work as usual. And we'll talk about it after.
Have you ever felt it? A call made to you when you're closed in on at the end of your path? The call of the void is different for every being. A feeling that emerges within your body, causing you to remain perfectly still. For a moment, you feel your mind slowly creeping towards something that wants you. It puts you in a trance, lowering your natural instincts to fight or flee. It's when you stare into an ocean and want nothing more than to enter it and remain underneath it. It's when you're looking over a cliff and you can't help but want to jump. But there's an anomaly within every lineage of Waren's bloodline. One the void cannot call upon. One that can fight the void and prevent others from answering that call. The only ones the void fears. Before the world had gods and goddesses, it had its own method of ending the life of the beings that inhabited it. When Weren, the patron god of death, was born, he created his disciples, his specters, to carry out the end of the journeys for all living things. Weren used every inch of power he had to contain the void within its realm. He placed a seal that would be tied to every living specter, which ensured that it could never be broken. In retaliation, the void did something unexpected. It came for Weren, leaving a crack in its seal. The void had been seeping through the bog slowly over time, preying on the specters, hunting them down, forcing them to answer their call no matter the consequences. To the void, we are the illness. We are the invaders. And it won't stop until every last specter has been wiped from existence. I've heard the call more than once in my lifetime. My mother answered the call and was told to take me with her. Another when my childhood friend led me to a hag's cottage and offered up our lives. I narrowly escaped both times while my mother and my friend had their lives ended. It seems as if the void knew I'd become a specter before I was even born. Rula's regime found me deep within the Deadlands, trying to fight back the void's corruption. It had encased me within its shadows, invading my mind, using the voices of those I once knew in order to break me. "Eily," I heard my mother call. "Come be with me. I miss you, darling." I slammed my hands on either side of my head, screaming to drown out the voices.
"You promised you'd stay with me. You promised you wouldn't leave me."
Jura's voice called out the final words I heard from her as I ran from that hag's cottage. Eily! The voices of the ones that the void took from me swirled around my mind. I learned that when the void mounted its attack against me, my daggers were useless. They couldn't pierce shadows. No more could they cut through water. I needed a weapon, something strong enough to strike down shadows. I remember digging my fingers into the dirt. The light of the moon's beam casted over my head, revealing the shadows on the ground were intertwining with my own. I closed my eyes once more, picturing my own shadow growing from my body. I imagined my fingers extending into claws, and my shadow self shrieking before lunging at the horrors that had surrounded. Within an instant, the voices in my mind had been replaced with silence. When I had the courage to open my eyes once more, a new shadow stood over me. The shadow of a human. My eyes darted to find a woman covered in light metallic armor. I watched her fists tighten around the grips she had with each of her swords. Her breathing was fast and heavy, the one thing I could hear. She stared down at me, connecting her eyes with mine. I thought to myself, this is where it ends for me. The void wins. Instead, she released her swords, allowing them to fall to the ground. She brought herself down to me, her eyeline leveled with mine. Her hands raised themselves to my shoulders, and I felt them tug at me. She pulled me into her chest and held on to me, tightly. 4 specters died that night. 4 specters risked their lives to save my own. 4 lives were exchanged for 1. I carried that guilt with me until the day came that I was tasked with rescuing a young boy who would also become a specter. It was then that I understood their sacrifice. I became a part of Rula's regime using my shadow to attack the void. Not many specters were able to call upon their own shadow. Rula, along with the rest of the leaders, called my kind Weren's nightmares. A final stand in the war between specters and the void.
Okay. Innocent is just on another level, dude. Like, I mean, not sure it's gonna get much better than that tonight, but we're gonna try our best. But yeah, one of probably the best readings that we've had. Plus, Snidgy's writing was great for that as well. I really wish I would have thought about it and tried to have her on for this, but yeah, we'll have to do another video where maybe we have her on. We got to get her to guest write some more. She hasn't written anything else for us yet, but we definitely got to get her on to write some stuff. But the Deadland stuff, I mean, we've talked about it on these streams before, and I've just talked about it a lot in general. And the Deadland stuff is so much fun to play around with, and we definitely need to go deeper into that because the stories that come out of it are always really good. But it's like it's a lot more like horror and like creepy type stuff, and that's not really my specialty. So that's why whenever we have people guest write, it seems to be in the Deadlands because it's not really my forte. But yeah, we did a little collabing with that one, and came out really good. One of our best for sure. Let me set up the next one. Sorry, I'm muting a lot. I have to like clear my throat and stuff. I'm definitely like losing my voice because I streamed 3 days in a row after not streaming for months. And I like feel it. It's taking a toll. There is a Maz one next. This one's also kind of short. I guess like as the weeks went on, I started to write them a little shorter, but Janine actually voices this one. I don't think I have any lines as Maz in this one, but hold on, Janine, sorry. This one I should have a lot of background stuff for. The other one Snidgy wrote, and like I said, she had already written it, and then we just kind of like adjusted it to fit into Fenrir. So like a lot of what went into that story was not really stuff that I came up with. So to really like pick apart that one, we would need to hear from Snidgy. So I'll definitely try to have her on at some point so we could talk about that type of stuff. And that's my mistake. I wasn't as prepared as I thought I was because I've been preparing this stream like all week. I should have actually looked at what fantasy distractions would be in this one. But yeah, so let's listen to this one. This one I should have a little more behind the scenes stuff on. Janine voices the narration. I don't think there's any Maz lines, but we have some good Maz and Kai stuff coming up in the next set that we do. But all right, let's listen.
I know exactly why I'm here. To detail the events of what happened on our outpost and to explain where Maz, the terrorist who took over our outpost, is headed. The answer is fairly simple. Maz is a man with an agenda. He's after your demon, the Starlight Samurai, the one I've been tasked with watching and keeping tabs on. The issue Maz has with the Starlight Samurai dates back to his mission on Ranka. I assume it's alright if I refer to the Starlight Samurai as Kai from here on. Good. Kai goes to Ranka to complete your mission, but leaves death and destruction in his wake, as he typically does. This didn't sit well with Maz, who felt he ran this planet before Kai showed up. Shortly after the destruction, Kai leaves, as the Galaxy Federation gives him the means in which to come and go as he pleases on just about any planet. This left Maz behind to pick up the pieces, but there wasn't much left for him to pick up, something that didn't sit quite well with him. So, who exactly is Maz, you ask? Well, I was assigned the task of following the Starlight Samurai and his missions, not everyone he meets along the way. But after Maz attacked our outpost, I did some digging. Turns out he's just your run-of-the-mill miscreant, and similar to many of the people on Ranka, a bounty hunter. According to himself, Maz is one of the best bounty hunters on Ranka. But this still should make him no match for Kai. At least that's what we all thought. This brings us to Kai's most recent mission, yet another one that you assigned him here at the Galaxy Federation. Kai's missions always seemed minor, but at the outpost we've started to piece together that what you assigned him isn't quite the actual mission, hence why everything always seems to go boom, right? Forgive me for detailing things you should already know, but for record's sake I'll continue to be as detailed as you hired me to be. Oasis is a quiet planet, known mostly for serene waters and a fairly safe vacation spot in the galaxy. However, those more in the know that this is just a front. Oasis has a pretty dangerous underground crime syndicate, which, if we're being blunt, so do most of these fancier places in the galaxy. This sounds like your traditional Starlight Samurai mission. It at least has all the workings of one. An otherwise peaceful planet on the surface with a horrifyingly dangerous undertone, which will most likely turn into yet another wasteland at the hands of Kai just trying to get the job done. The Galaxy Federation really needs to reconsider using these planets for resources. But I digress. Kai goes to Oasis seemingly unnoticed as he slips into the more shady parts of the planet. Not many people know he's even there, but Maz knows thanks to his attack on our outpost. I was forced to give him Kai's exact coordinates and what planet he was going to next, as Maz held me at gunpoint. That's where things get complicated on Oasis. Instead of letting Kai start his mission and interrupting it, Maz took a more direct approach. Kai gets to the area where he's meant to carry out his mission, but when he enters this particular shady establishment, he's surprised to see it's cleaned out. Completely. The place he's meant to shut down is empty. His target and all potential associates are already executed. It's a rare bloodbath full of blood Kai himself didn't have to shed. Curious, Kai inspects the area. Sure, he could have left and said he completed the task, but we both know that isn't Kai's style. The cyborg is programmed to be a mass murderer for the Federation, but there is a human side in there somewhere that does feel remorse. As Kai goes further into this establishment, he finds more gifts from Maz. Gifts that he stole from our database. Which I'm sorry about, but like I said, the whole gunpoint thing, and let's face it, we both know I don't get paid enough to protect this data with my life. So, what are the gifts? Holographic images of Kai's past. The more bloody personal missions that have gone awry are photos of Kai on his days off, where he's on planets he finds peaceful, and even pictures of Adriana, the girl he had a connection with in Mayripa. It's hard to tell if this affected Kai in any way. If it did, he managed to keep his cool. He continued to press forward until he reached the end of the establishment. Maz and his men did some handiwork and replaced the back door with a new, much larger door. Kai inspected it thoroughly for traps before opening it and was surprised when it led to a large empty area. Our records show this area was originally intended to be used to expand one of Oasis's resorts, but once the underground crime made its way into Oasis, those plans were scrapped. The shady individuals on Oasis had filled this area with their own stolen goods, but Maz cleared it out, leaving a large empty space akin to an arena. A perfect place for two rivals to settle their differences. The perfect place for a showdown.
All right, so that one is actually so like all of the Kai and Maz stuff is kind of like a background story being told throughout the first season of Fantasy Distractions because none of it takes place on Fenrir. It's just like a little extra thing. Obviously, it's going to be relevant at some point to the main storyline, but all of the stories told through season 1 are kind of just like this, not really like a one-off, but just like a separate little side story that's happening while the main Fenrir stuff is happening, right? So like the main Fenrir stuff is obviously Ingvar and Kazai building up to this war, which is kind of where we end up going into like season 2 and stuff. But which is information that if I was doing this when I was supposed to be doing it, I would know, but not everybody would really know yet. But because I'm doing this stream after the fact, I can like freely talk about season 2 as heavily based on the war between Ingvar and Kazai that we built up through most of season 1. But getting back to Kai and Maz, it's like Kai's story, which was the second fantasy distraction that we ever released, which was 6 months before the third one came out. That one was essentially just kind of establishing who Kai is and how he has this very like very Trigun Vash the Stampede style of a reputation, I guess you could say, where like he doesn't go in to destroy a planet, but shenanigans happen that essentially lead to the planet getting wrecked in the wake of his mission. So we established that in the first one, which was the Starlight Samurai one with Kai, which was told from Maz's perspective and takes place on the planet that Maz is from. Excuse me. Which is that planet Ronco, which is the like bounty hunter planet that Maz is from, where Maz was essentially like the main like dude on that planet, you know, like he was a bounty hunter, he was a bad guy, but like he kind of ran the place, you know. So Kai coming in and basically destroying it kind of caused this beef between them. So so that's where we get introduced to Kai and we get introduced to Maz, and then the character that Janine is playing in this story is the same character she played in Fantasy Distractions number 21, which was Transmissions, which is the one that we did where like we jumped from like voice actor to voice actor, and it was little stories about Kai, like him going to planets, like people from those planets like reacting to his arrival or the aftermath of what he did. And it ultimately ends with Janine's character, who she reprises for this story, that is talking about how she was in charge of running an outpost and surveying everything that Kai was doing until Maz showed up and held her at gunpoint, which happens in Transmissions. We had a little gunshot noise when Maz shows up, and he shuts down the whole outpost. He gets all the information on Kai from this character, and then she is basically being interrogated by the Galaxy Federation, like our own people that she works for are trying to get information out of her as to what happened with everything at the outpost and with Kai, because the stuff that's going down in Oasis, they don't necessarily have eyes on Kai for it, and they don't know what Kai's doing and what he's up to, so and they just needed a little extra information on what actually happened and what's actually happening in Oasis. And then since I'm doing this after the season is over now, I could talk about how Fantasy Distraction 48 and 49, I believe, are the kind of the finale of this little side story between Kai and Maz. So our next stream that we do, we will be listening to those. And I'm really, really proud of those two. I don't think they got as much attention as they deserved. But that's kind of how I feel about all the Fantasy Distractions, because it's not like we have millions of subscribers and views or anything. But hopefully one day it blows up and people appreciate it a lot more than they do currently, because I really like those two. So I'm excited to get to those. And when we do those, it'll be good. There's a car show coming up. I'm not really into cars. Skills? What kind of cars are we talking? Is it in like the Javits Center? But yeah. So this is all kind of build up to the next one. Janine did a great job, of course, as usual. Her accent is so cool. I love her. I know I talk about her accent every time we do one of these things, but oh my gosh, I keep skipping, like I keep opening a video and then accidentally skipping backwards. All right, I actually narrate the next one, and I hate the sound of my own voice, which is bad going into the next one, because the next one I will be reading a lot between 41 and 50, but this next one is going to be me reading, so probably won't be nearly as good as the other ones that we've listened to so far, but that's all right. But we'll hop into that in a second. Wait, we can have accents. I want to be the African warlord. What? Wait. You don't read for us, Skills. I mean, do you want to read for us? I sent you an audio clip. I think your voice is fantastic. Thanks, man. I appreciate it, man. I know, like, when I recorded a lot of stuff for season 1, my mic settings weren't the best, but I think, like, as the season went on, I got better with it. So I'm not sure if this is, like, one of the meh ones or one of the good ones, but I guess we're about to find out. I don't remember even reading this one. Like, I didn't think I read this one for some reason, but apparently I did. Not yet? Okay, you tell me. You tell me when, Skills. We'll make it happen. All right. So let me get this one going, but we'll watch. There are many mysteries on. I guess my mic wasn't great for this one. Wait, I have it broken down. Wait, why is this one? I didn't break this down. It actually, hold on, I'm going to switch over just so I could show you guys. This is weird. I did not do this. I also would like to, wait, everybody's just going to play an African warlord? I'm going to switch over for a second without muting myself. You see the stuff at the bottom, like intro, who is Grex, Grex's growth, Reddick, Grex, the orphanage, conclusion? I didn't set that up. That's weird. But all right, I'm going to mute myself. Let's listen and then... Yeah, Skills, you would have to learn how to read. But okay, we're gonna listen to this one and then we'll talk about it. But I don't know where this stuff on the bottom came from. Why don't all the videos do that? Because I definitely didn't set that up. All right, I'm muting myself. Ironically, muting myself, but also we're gonna be listening to me. But you know what I mean. All right. There are many mysteries on Fenrir, but also many legends. Either stories of magnificent battles or people who have reached legendary status themselves. As far as people go, in the east you have Lord Kazai, an honorable warrior who served his ruler with body and soul, only to be cast aside until the people of Onyx chose him to rise up as their new leader. In the west you have King Ingvar, a man who was never handed anything in life, and was forced to fight for everything he now considers his own. These two are forever linked due to their rivalry and their world-changing battle atop Mount Shair, the same battle that classifies them both as legends on Fenrir. Gods living among us. So where does that leave the rest of us Fenins? Are we just meant to be pawns in their story? If we're being honest with ourselves, I think most Fenins would just want a simple life. The celebrity these two have garnered in recent history would be too much for the average Fenin to even comprehend living through. Then there is the other side of the coin. There are many people on Fenrir that would kill to have their name told about in stories from coast to coast, their achievements sung about by bards and poets, and tales of their triumph traveling far out to the other continents. These people are potentially the most dangerous type of people on Fenrir, because not all of them look at Lord Kazai as a role model, but instead misunderstand King Ingvar's rise to fame, and think they may succeed in a similar fashion. One such person is a member of King Ingvar's army, a man by the name of Grex. No one is really sure if it was his intention from the beginning to go down the path he's on now, but he was recruited randomly into King Ingvar's army shortly after King Ingvar announced himself as the new god for those who followed the wolf god Enrar in the town of Genin. This was relatively early in King Ingvar's campaign to take over Obsidian and crush Lord Kazai's Onyx army. At first, Grex went under the radar, as he wasn't much of a fighter compared to some of King Ingvar's stronger knights. But with pure will and determination, he started to become stronger and stronger. He would often volunteer for missions where he knew King Ingvar would be present, and tried to study the way the king carried himself. Grex started to model himself after the king, and tried his best to follow in his footsteps. Unbeknownst even to him, Grex began to gain the attention of King Ingvar. Despite his brutish nature and what most people who don't know him might think, Ingvar is actually quite intelligent. Not only did he begin to recognize the growth and improvement in Grex, he also realized Grex's reliance on Ingvar being there to make the major decisions and guide their army in the right direction. Therefore, the king thought it would be best to see how Grex can handle himself without him being present. The task in question was getting the people of Reddick to join Ingvar's cause. Scout out if there were any able-bodied men and women that they could recruit to the Obsidian army, and spread word of King Ingvar's reign. At first the mission went smoothly. Grex and a small group of Obsidian knights entered Reddick, which was often considered the slums of Obsidian, and entered the few businesses around town. They spoke of King Ingvar and his plans for Obsidian's future. They scouted for new recruits, but were surprised to find a lack of able bodies. Had Obsidian in general paid more attention to Reddick, then this would not come as a surprise. Due to limited resources and even more limited help that Reddick received, most of Reddick's people were malnourished and weak. Only recently had the town been gifted some magical help in the form of a young orphan able to create water out of thin air. But by the time Grex and his men arrived, the orphan wasn't able to make that big of a difference. The seemingly endless water supply was sure to raise some curiosity, so Grex began to ask why this was the case in a town that was otherwise limited. After some forceful prying, Grex found his answer. Though they didn't give the name of the orphan responsible, he at least knew it was connected to the orphanage in general. The entire experience frustrated Grex. Even though finding this orphan would be a huge benefit to King Ingvar's army, the majority of this mission would be considered a failure, and the last thing Grex wanted to do was disappoint his king. Ignoring the importance of this orphan and the impact an endless water supply could have on an army getting ready for war, Grex thought it would be better to show King Ingvar what he would do to those that stood against his king. So he fabricated a lie that fooled even the Obsidian Knights with him on this mission. He pretended that some of the people in Reddick denounced the new king, and that this was a major insult to their ruler. The carnage that ensued was unlike any massacre seen on Fenrir before. These were trained knights in an army led by one of the strongest fighters on the planet against an entire town of people unfit for combat. The slaughter in the main town was brief, but as the battle, if you could even call it that, spilled over to where the orphanage was, Grex instructed his men to look for the orphan that knows magic. Grex himself made his way from building to building in Reddick, making sure that there were no survivors to tell the tale of what truly happened in Reddick. And thanks in part to the fact that Reddick was hardly noticed by other people on Fenrir, this was a pretty safe plan, and the odds of Grex getting away with it were high. However, as Grex returned to where the orphanage was, he soon realized that the news he would bring back to King Ingvar would still disappoint him. Grex was shocked to see that all of the Obsidian Knights he brought with him to Reddick were scattered around the orphanage, dead upon the ground. Confused and concerned, Grex checked the entire orphanage. He found a room with a wall broken where the orphan must have been hiding. He rushed outside to see if the orphan's savior or the orphan was still in Reddick, but he didn't see anything except the bodies of the knights assigned to him. When Grex returned to King Ingvar, the king would not even speak with him. Instead, his recruiter, Dita, explained to Grex that he would not be leading any more missions or expeditions for the king, and despite his failures, King Ingvar would instead use Reddick to house those who could not fight in the war. Grex's desire to become the next god king after King Ingvar's rule would not stop there, though. As wartime approaches, he sees many opportunities to get back in the king's good graces. The scariest part of it all is what lengths will Grex be willing to go to in order to prove himself next. Okay, my my mic was still like buzzing a little bit. Like there's so many things that I could hear now that I think I've gotten better with. Plus the room I used to stream in general compared to this room was a lot bigger. So like everything I did, no matter what I did, always had like an echo or something in the background. And I think that won't be as bad. I mean, anything I've recorded recently in this house, at first I had the computer in the basement, and that's pretty large and echoey too. So I think once I start recording stuff in this room, it should be a lot better. But I don't think I maybe recorded one thing for Literary Gladiators in this room so far, I think. No, I don't even think I did that. I don't think I recorded anything in this room yet. So we'll have to see how that goes. Hopefully it'll sound better. Just tell everyone she's exclusively signed to read for me only. All right, you got it. She actually she doesn't like fully speak yet. She talks with like her inside voice. We call it her inside voice. So she says a lot of words and she understands, like she's like super smart. But she doesn't really like fully like say sentences and stuff yet. So but when she can, I'm sure she'll read for you. No problem, Skills, don't worry. But yeah, so the Greg story. Grex is just the worst, man. I'm telling you, like, that character is just, he's going to be hated by everybody. If Fantasy Distractions ever takes off and we become more popular and stuff, like, everybody's going to hate that character. And that's kind of the point. Like, you're not supposed to like him. He makes a lot of bad decisions and he does a lot of horrible things, like kill everybody in an orphanage because he messed up. And that particular one backfires on him. If you've watched everything we've released, then you know who foiled his plans in that orphanage scene. But I won't talk about it here in case people are watching this but not caught up or anything. But we do mention about like how the wartime is starting and everything's heating up, and Grex wants nothing more than to be the next Ingvar, and he's just the worst. Not if he has a twist ending, he's just the worst. People are not gonna like him. There's just no way. I made him very unlikable. Like there's no redeeming qualities about him. Oh my gosh, I keep doing this. Okay. I actually read this next one too, so I'm assuming my mic is not better in this next one. I don't remember reading this one either. But I also read this next one. Then I think Sasselia. Then we have Jake and Innocent. Me again. I was reading a lot towards the end. I didn't realize I read this many. I think we have another sassy one. Okay. And then I think we end with Jake also. Okay. All right, we'll just we'll keep rolling. Didn't really have much else to talk about with the Grex one. Pretty straightforward. He's horrible. He's the worst. He just wants to be like Ingvar, but he makes a lot of bad decisions. And yeah. Maybe the orphanage was secretly... What is your obsession with African warlords? You never know. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you do you, man. I'll write it if you want to voice it. That's all I'm saying. I'll write anything. All right, this next one's about Sade, which is how you pronounce this name. And yeah, let's listen to it and then we'll talk about it. I don't quite remember everything about this one. I obviously wrote it and I read it, so but that was a while ago. So let's do it together. Hopefully it jogs some memories and then we'll talk about it. While Lord Kazai served under Lord Unden, he wasn't just his strongest, most loyal warrior. He would also spend his days training new recruits and teaching them the way of the blade, the Onyx Army way. The katana had become the main weapon used by armies throughout the history of Fenrir, but none nearly as prominent as onyx. Obsidian also adapted the way of the blade, but it wasn't surprising to see Obsidian Knights wielding other weapons. Instead of adapting to new weapons themselves, Onyx continued to train with katanas, learning to use them to counter Obsidian's weapons. One day, word reached Kazai about a new group of recruits and that Lord Unden wanted him to train them. They were outcasts from the town of Amir, recruited in a recent sweeping of the territory. Lord Unden would often send scouts and other servants of his to scour the landscape of Onyx for potential soldiers, but even Kazai wasn't sure about their past. To be fair, he didn't much care where they came from. He only cared if he could turn them into strong soldiers. Whatever your history was before you came to Unden is just that. History, he would often tell those he would train. This group was no different. Each time Kazai was given the task of helping train new recruits, he tried to figure out which of them would improve the greatest on the first day. Among these new recruits was a short woman with long black hair. The days she spent in Amir must not have been kind to her, because she was skinny to the point that Kazai thought she had an illness. One would wonder how she would even hold a stick, let alone one of Onyx's fine steel katanas. Kazai didn't think this way. He saw a frightened, frail little girl, and he wondered how he would shape her into an honorable knight. After the first day of training, he was impressed with the promise she showed. Though not the best among the recruits on the first day, she quickly grew stronger. Her movements got quicker, her strikes precise. When it came to technique within the Onyx army, this girl's rivaled that of Kazai himself. If you're a part of Lord Kazai's army now, then you know the woman I speak of. Far from a scared, skinny little girl now, that is for sure. She stands as one of Lord Kazai's chosen. Her name is Sade, and the tale of her origins is not the only one I have to share on this day. It's obvious Sade's relationship with Lord Kazai dates back to before he rolled to Onyx, but there are many stories of her loyalty to him and her battle prowess. There is a town not far from the waters surrounding the main continent of Fenrir called Hemlock. Not only did it border the continent, it also bordered Onyx, and despite a few towns between them, it was relatively close to the Deadlands. It should then come as no surprise that Hemlock saw all manner of oddities, and it wasn't the best place to live. Lord Unden wished to change that, and dispatched a group of his soldiers to find out the cause of people's suffering in Hemlock. Though he didn't want to risk his most trusted soldiers in a place known for its mysteries and unpredictableness. That's where Sade comes in. Don't misunderstand, this was not close to when Kazai began to train her and she was freshly recruited from Amir. This was a few months later. Despite Kazai's praise, Lord Unden still naively judged Sade for the fact that she came from Amir. And while Kazai didn't weigh Sade's past on his scale of judgment, it was all Lord Unden could think about. You see, Sade came from a broken family, and despite her best efforts to be a good child and helpful, neither of her parents wanted her. She became homeless, desperate, and involved with the wrong people shortly after. Stealing and taking advantage of those around her in Amir, the group she was with soon got caught by the wrong person. A traveling mercenary passing through Amir was sure to have some gold, they thought, and they felt the risk was worth the reward. It wasn't. Those who took her in did not survive this encounter, but Sade was lucky. The mercenary spared her for a reason she still does not know to this day, and when those with authority surveyed the damage done in the brief skirmish, Sade had no choice but to admit to their wrongdoings. They locked her away until Lord Unden's soldiers showed up for recruitment. They gave Sade to them to get rid of her. The mercenary sparing her life, Lord Unden's recruitment, Sade saw these as signs from the gods that they weren't quite done with her yet, that she was destined for something greater. I believe that's why she tried so hard to learn from Kazai, and why she improved so quickly. Now, I must apologize for getting so sidetracked here, You're probably wondering how this all ties into Hemlock. Like I said earlier, Lord Unden didn't trust Sade. Prior to joining his army, she was as bottom of the barrel as any bandit roaming the lands of Fenrir. In his eyes, she was expendable. The streets of Hemlock were quite dark even when the sun was shining. There was a strange, fog-like mist that seemed to surround the entire town. While darkness and most scary things on Fenrir were often connected to the witch goddess Aradia, many believed that the disappearance of Morska, the mermaid goddess, was the cause of Hemlock's bizarreness instead. Add in the fact that being able to take on many forms through mist is one of Morska's godlike abilities, and that Hemlock was so close to the water, it made this a pretty solid theory. When Sade's group entered the town, they didn't see anything out of the ordinary at first, but as they went deeper into the town, members of her party began to vanish one by one. She wasn't given command in this group, so she too got lost in the shuffle, and didn't have enough of a voice to hold things together once panic set in. She readied her katana and tried to force a formation that would keep them all back to back. When she went to lean upon one of her fellow soldiers, there was nobody there. She realized now that she was once again alone. Kazai taught her the importance of discipline and composure on the battlefield. Whenever he was part of their training, he allowed the option to join him for quiet meditation after the training session. Sade would often take him up on this offer. During these meditations, they mostly sat in complete silence, but sometimes Kazai would teach them some steady breathing techniques and ways he's learned over the years to calm the nerves and tap into your senses. Sade was known for her attention to detail and near-perfect technique, so mastering these lessons from Kazai came naturally to her. Surrounded by mist, darkness, and whatever was claiming the lives of her fellow Onyx soldiers, Sade held her katana's handle tightly and closed her eyes. At first she only heard her own quiet breathing, but then she heard something that sounded like a twig snapping. She opened her eyes quickly and turned her head in the direction of the sound and came face to face with a monster. It was the ultimate amalgamation of what you would expect a creature created by both Aradia and Morska would be. A horrifying, grotesque fiend with fish-like gills and tentacles protruding from its face. Sade waited for it to attack her first and launched her counterattack the moment it did. The first one she disposed of quickly. A single, pinpoint strike that forced the monster to the ground. The moment it hit, it exploded into the mist surrounding them, and more monsters soon appeared around her. When Sade fights, she fights with an elegance you would often find in a dancer, not a warrior. Each movement is error-free and executed so gracefully. The accuracy of each attack is fluid and a work of art. Despite the purple and black blood that sprayed out of each wound, there was a certain beauty to the slaughter. In mere moments, the creatures were dead. Almost instantly, the mist dissipated as if a curse had been lifted off of Hemlock. Doors opened, and the people living there exited their homes for the first time in who knows how long. They praised Sade as their savior. The rumors and guesses as to what those Fenins experienced during the curse has been theorized ever since, and I'm not sure anyone knows the true answer, but there is no mistaking the part Sade played in its cleansing. Upon her return, Lord Unden remained unimpressed and didn't give Sade the recognition she deserved. Kazai, on the other hand, praised Sade and even joined her in mourning the soldiers lost on her mission. It should then come as no shock that the day Kazai became Lord of Onyx, Sade was in the castle when Lord Kazai took it over. She stood beside him then, as she does now. Okay. I like I said, my recordings and stuff, like in that room and just in general, like during that time, like the quality wise, like wasn't the best. But I'm actually pretty proud of that one. Like not overall, but like especially like the fight stuff with Sade. when she's like fighting the monsters and stuff. I think that was executed pretty well in the sense that like like writing fight scenes is pretty tough normally. I think I'm actually pretty good at it because Soldier's Crest had a lot of fight scenes. So I kind of like pride myself on being pretty good at that. And any ones that we've written for fantasy distractions, I've tried to keep them brief for the most part so that people can use their imagination. But I think that one came out pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that one as far as writing goes. Maybe not so much in the actual voiceover execution, but I am happy with it. Happy enough, at least, to acknowledge it after the fact. But yeah, Sade is she's one of those characters that like I consider similar to how like Mira is in Soldier's Crest. Mira was supposed to be like a one-off like side character that I wasn't going to really use for anything. And then she ended up becoming like one of my most popular characters and probably my favorite character to write across all of my works. So Sade is kind of like that, where she was meant just kind of to be like one of Kazai's knights that like, he could rely on, and just like not necessarily like a background character or a side character, but she wasn't really meant to be like that big of a character. And the more I like write about her and include her in stuff that I've written, especially like a lot of the season 2 stuff I was originally planning to release when we were going to do like the audio play format, she is quickly becoming one of like my favorite characters. So we'll definitely be using her a lot more in the future. All right, this one coming up is read by Sasselia. But this is another one that's kind of like well, I mean, like the way Fantasy Distractions is designed, it's designed to kind of like bounce around and stuff and like be very standalone type stories. So like this one does stand alone for the most part. But it's like very disconnected to the main stuff. I'd say like even more so than like the Sabia stuff, I guess, and even the Isla stuff to a degree. Just because it's like, I mean, it's meant to be that way. I don't know. We'll listen to it, then we'll talk about it, but you'll see what I mean. I'll talk about it more after we listen.
Each day, I stare out the window of our castle. Wonder what it's like on the other side of the mountain behind us. This is the kingdom of Lynette, and I am its princess. Our family has ruled Lynette for many, many years, and we were blessed with ruling this kingdom by Morska, the mermaid goddess. I think Morska may be the only one on Fenrir that knows about this kingdom, because we choose to hide within the mountains with illusion magic. Pirates or traders sailing the Fen seas won't see us. They will simply see more mountains or clouds, but yet we are hidden here behind the facade. Hiding with illusion magic was the idea of Morska and our ancestors. Morska wished to preserve a part of Fenrir no matter what happened elsewhere on the planet, and this was the safest way to keep an area pure and safe from the happenings around the world. Morska would often visit Lynette and tell us about what was happening in the other parts of the world, and then one day, she stopped visiting. Curious as to why, we sent some of our people to fetch information. Of course, we had to choose our most loyal and trustworthy citizens, because if anyone told people that we were hidden in these mountains, then we would surely get outside visitors. We were shocked to learn that Morska had vanished, along with the other gods and goddesses. Shortly after this discovery, my parents and their advisors began to have constant meetings deciding what the fate of Lynette would be. By that I mean, now that Morska is gone, should we branch out, expand? Should we drop the illusion magic and whoever comes to visit or whoever discovers this place would be allowed to enter? Is it worth the risk? Suppose it depends on who you ask. I personally would love to see the outside world. Everything that Morska shared with us that we've recorded in notes and books and everything our scouts reported back was so fascinating. Fenrir is roughly divided into 4 parts. Obsidian in the west, ruled by a Viking tyrant named King Ingvar, who is said to wield a sword that can cut through anything. Onyx in the east, ruled by an honorable samurai named Lord Kazai, with a blade said to block any attack. Supposedly, these two hate each other and have some long historical rivalry. How exciting. The north of the main continent seems rather bland, and it sounds like nothing exciting ever happens up there, but north of the continent itself is a large snowy land that is almost as mysterious as our little spot here on Fenrir. Extremely far south on the main continent is a place known as the Deadlands. That is a scary place ruled by the witch goddess Aradia. I wish Morska was still around so I could ask her questions about her sister. The witch goddess sounds so interesting, and her home being the Deadlands makes me wonder if she also vanished, or is she still residing in there? Between the Deadlands and the lands owned by King Ingvar and Lord Kazai are a bunch of other towns, and even another kingdom similar to ours. The Kingdom of Ilfor it's called, I believe, and they seem to be neutral like we are. If you go further east, there is yet another continent called Sabia, though our scouts couldn't get information on the rulers there. They did manage to make their way to a gladiatorial arena that had recently opened, and got to watch some of the games. Supposedly, male and female Fennins fight against each other and monsters. They often fight to the death. I'm not sure I could stomach a show like that, but I'd be lying if I didn't say it sounds intriguing. I spent my whole day yesterday looking through some of our older books and records for Morsko to see if anyone had drawn a map of Fenrir. The reason being that one of our scouts reported another continent that I don't remember hearing about. When I found the map and checked the location where this continent would be, I was surprised to see it empty. Did a brand new landmass just emerge from the sea? Is it inhabited? I wonder if it would be safe to move the net there while it's still new and empty. That would probably require too many resources and could potentially be dangerous. I doubt my parents' advisors would go for that. It's too bad, because being cooped up in this castle all the time is enough to drive anyone mad. Not that Lynette is limited to just this castle, but I often don't get to go out and mingle with our people. Especially not since Morsko vanished. It has now become all hands on deck. My parents and their advisors actually agreed on expanding and allowing outsiders in, as well as allowing the people of Lynette to go out. But our most recent trip to the mainland changed all of that. As I mentioned earlier, we were aware of the legendary rivalry between King Ingvar and Lord Kazai, but it seems the rivalry is heating up to the point of complete destruction. Meaning, if these two powerhouses go to war, it may be Fenrir as a whole that pays the price. Hence, everyone needs to get involved here in Lynette. We have reached our greatest risk of being discovered when we're not ready to be. If King Ingvar or Lord Kazai stumbles upon Lynette somehow, they will look to recruit all of us into their armies, and we'll go from the best-kept secret on Fenrir to people dying for a cause we were never meant to be a part of. As much as I wish to see the world, I have to agree with my parents that we need to keep the people of Lynette safe. That's our responsibility that was given to us by Morska herself. Not to mention we are rather limited on resources. Morska provided us with a way to survive even without her assistance. But if King Ingvar or Lord Kazai found us and wanted to fight us instead of looking for more recruits, then we would stand no chance. There has never been a reason for us to fight before, so we never really prepared for it. Morska promised us safety and we trusted her word. Now that word means nothing, and we need to be prepared for the worst. I don't mind the long hours of focusing on the future of Lynette to keep our people safe, but I wanted to take some time to leave a note in the event we are discovered. I wanted people to understand who we are and why we have remained hidden from the world.
Alright, that one actually does not, that one isn't really as much of a, like, unrelated story as I remember it being. I don't know, I wrote that one a long time ago, obviously, but it actually acts more as, like, a recap, like another recap type episode. In the sense where, like, she explains who Ingvar is, she explains who Kazai is, what they do, their katanas, stuff like that. She makes references to, like, Aradia being in the Deadlands, which is actually a pretty good setup that I did. for the next one, because I think the next one is Regit, which is the monster in the bog of Aradia's Deadlands that Jake Guest wrote and features him and Innocent's voices in it. It's really, really good. We're going to get to that in a second, but it actually like foreshadows that because she even mentions the Deadlands, whether or not Aradia is still around because the other gods and goddesses are missing. Also mentions that the other gods and goddesses are missing, so like there's a lot of like recappy stuff in this one, while also introducing Lynette and explaining why they would not reveal themselves anytime soon while the war is going on, which makes sense. So maybe once the war is done, we'll revisit them. I think I have one more story with her in it that I wrote, but we never recorded. So when we do the second season, when we do the second season of Fantasy Shorts, I believe, that'll probably be part of it, and Sasselia probably voice that too, if she's down to do that. But yeah, other than that, we never really went back into the Lynette stuff, and it did kind of just act as like a recap episode, which is totally fine. I mean, because so many of these stories like stand alone, and there are so many of them. Like if you were to binge the playlist, or like watch some of the playlists and then pick it up later, at least there's kind of like these scattered out like recap stories. The last one before this one, if I remember correctly, is the poet one, the juvenile one, where she's like rhyming everything, but she is basically recapping any of the fantasy distractions that come before her fantasy distraction. So I think it's good to kind of just like drop these ones in there. Like it's still like an interesting story on its own, because you find out about the civilization that is basically like on a mountainside behind Obsidian. So like where King Ingvar's army is from, there's like a mountainside on the other side of the continent from them, or like, you know, like just outside of the continent from them, that is just like hidden. Like Morska helped them just like hide on the side of this mountain. So like nobody knows they're there, but they're like this entire civilization that honestly, like what she talks about, like if Ingvar was able to actually like know that they were there and they went in and like forcibly recruited people from there, like they end up doing everywhere else, I mean his army would have been huge, because he would have had like an entire kingdom of worth of people backing him up. But I do like that they just kind of stay hidden and stay out of it. She also mentions like a continent that popped up that nobody knows about, and I actually hinted about this way back in like Fantasy Distractions number 14, where it's like the record keepers. Maybe it wasn't 14. I think it's after 14 actually. Hold on. It is one that we recapped already. Is it that one? Hold on. 23. The one where it's like the god, the goddess, I should say, that has created Fenrir. And she's talking about like how much she loves watching Fenrir and stuff and everything that's unfolding. And then she mentions like, oh, you know, like if I want to spice things up, I'll just like plop a new continent in there and just, you know, add some things to shake it up. So it's kind of hinting at that being something that has actually happened, where she's just like, yeah, I'll just add like a new continent in there, maybe add some people on there, maybe, you know, spice things up. So there is one of these like mysterious continents that has emerged, that Lynette is aware of, and they're debating like moving Lynette there. So there's a lot of little Easter eggs and recappy kind of references in that one. It's like not a lot happens in it, but it's not the worst. All right, the next one is, so this one is guest written by Jake. Jake also narrates it, and then there are some radio lines voiced by Innocent in here as well. This is a really, really good one. So I'm going to let that play, and then we'll talk about... Can you guys hear my niece yelling? She's yelling again. All right. So we'll watch this, and then I'll be back.
There aren't many Fenins who speak of the Deadlands. In fact, I'm not even sure if one has ever gone in and lived to tell the tale. I must say, even heading in there myself sent chills down my spine. And I knew I would live no matter what I may encounter. But nonetheless, I was put off upon entering the cursed land. Luckily, I simply helped take care of a lesser creature. But in the Meganum I've lived, I have never seen anything like Regit. I've asked record keepers for any information they had on the creature, and all the information they told me was that it was born from Aradia herself. I have no information on how, or if there was a father of sorts, but seeing that thing tells me this was not birthed in any natural way. Even Regit has a face a mother couldn't love, but for whatever reason, Aradia will revive the creature if it were to somehow die. Barely anything lives in the bog, and anything foreign to the land is swiftly relieved of its life by this thing. Yet when I entered, it left me to my own devices, as if it had no interest in removing me from its territory. A curious creature in an even more curious domain. The Fenins have learned to understand how deadly and dangerous the bog is, so many avoid it. Some, just like mankind from places such as Earth, have a hard-headed and gung-ho nature, ignoring danger and seeking glory in a place where it shan't be found. Although, one Fenin did make his way in, even coming face to face with Regit, and by some miracle, he survived, killing it. Every other man, creature, or any other living thing was demolished, devoured, destroyed. Any word you can think of for the complete annihilation of a living being would fit, and it still wouldn't describe what this thing does to them. Yet this one Fenin survived and slayed the beast. For years, I would check in on this man. A brave soul by the name of Jack. Even when Regit had been revived, Jack was still alive. It was almost as if Jack had commanded the respect of Regit. Though, I don't think Regit even understands what that word means, or if it understands anything at all. I grew so curious about this creature that I even entered the bog again, confronting the ruler of it herself. Aradia answered my call, and Regit joined us for a meeting. Back in the furthest reaches of the Deadlands, Aradia has a quaint home, one that apparently even the record keepers didn't know existed. She invited me in, and I was eager to interrogate her on this creature.
A prophet once presented a gift to myself and the other gods, claiming that if we were to sacrifice something to him, we'd receive something more powerful in return. In hopes of improving myself, I sacrificed a single tentacle, and in return, I was given a puppet by the name of Regit.
A puppet, you say? So everything it does because you command it?
That is indeed what a puppet is.
What happened to the prophet? Is he still around?
Of course not. We thought he had tricked us, but it turns out he wasn't lying. That doesn't mean I forgave him. Rigit tasted blood for the first time that day.
Barbaric. What did you think when Jack first killed the beast?
Do you actually believe a mere Fenin could kill the offspring of something like myself? If he believes his skill is what brought it down, he's wrong. I'm a loving goddess. So I allowed him to defeat Rigit.
Why? What purpose did that serve?
It quenched my boredom for the time being. Rigit was only so entertaining for so long. Jack arrived, and I saw a new possibility for some kind of excitement.
And Jack? You let him live because he's entertaining?
It's not like he can leave. I've lived for a long time, and I haven't been able to experiment with Jakari's defiled version of himself. I've only ever removed them, as they were never my concern. Now that he's gone, I figured I'd do some experimenting.
Even though you have Jack now, why do you keep Rigit around? If Jack is a better source of entertainment, why keep around your old and used toy?
There are things Rigit can do that Jack can't. Fenins have limitations. Beings like yourself and I do not. Things born from beings like us share that same limitlessness. Rigit may have gotten boring, but I had simply run out of ideas at the time. He will continue to amuse me for years to come.
The gift that keeps on giving, huh? Aradia surprisingly answered many of my questions about herself, the land, Jack, and of course Rigit. And even after our long conversation, with all the answers I had been given, Rigit remains a mystery.
All right, that one's really good too. I mean, I'm really happy with how that one came out. Jake wrote it, and him and Innocent put the voiceover on it, obviously. But I think it came out really, really good. I think it told a lot of what we needed to tell about the Deadlands and Jack's involvement in there and his relationship with Aradia, where it's like he's only allowed to enter there because of Aradia, like, allowing him to come in. And that kind of sets up the fact that, like, even though she just kind of uses him as like a puppet, like, he's there because she wants him there. And they have this weird relationship and dynamic. I'm actually wearing an Aradia t-shirt that we had made. There's a separate fantasy distraction for that, and you can buy it on I think I have it on TeePublic and Redbubble at the moment, but I mostly just use TeePublic, so just go to look up fantasy distractions on TeePublic, or you can even search for Aradia. You should be able to search for Aradia or Witch Goddess at this point. So but yeah, one of the best stories that we have out for sure. That story actually, Rigit in general, like the monster and the bog or whatever, and that was actually one of the first concepts I came up with for fantasy distractions. I knew I wanted to have a bog somewhere, and I knew I wanted a monster in the bog to be related to a story. So that's actually one of the very first like stories that I thought of for fantasy distractions when I was coming up with like the original ones. But yeah. So next one is Hend, the mastermind of Blood River. That I am narrating as well. So we got Hend, we got an Eden story that I believe is narrated by Sasselia, and then is it Sasselia? I'm pretty sure it's Sasselia. And then we got the Desiree story that's narrated by Jake. So we're moving through these pretty quick. I think what I might do is, if we get through these pretty fast, I will probably. Would you say that writer bad? Shake my head. Rest in pasta. That writer. That could be another one of your alternate reality storylines. In that reality, you're a bad writer. In this one, you're a good one. Okay, so never say you're a bad writer again in my presence. All right. All right, we're gonna hop over to the Hend one, and then. Yeah, if we get through everything pretty quick, maybe what I might do is I'll like end the stream so that way the fantasy distraction portion of it can stand alone. If I need to like put it anywhere else or edit it or anything, and then maybe we'll go live again, and maybe I'll game a little bit. I was gonna do this thing where like I record these. I had this idea for like more writing prompt YouTube shorts. But the ones that I used to do were just like written out. So it was just like writing. It had like that typewriter effect going. But I think I might try to do it where like I actually just like read it myself. Because I've noticed that like videos where I read it myself, where I'm like actually in the video physically myself, do a lot better on there for some reason. So I was going to do some of those live, but maybe we'll save that for another night. I'm actually like addicted to Diablo 3 because I'm so excited for Diablo 4. So maybe, depending on how long the next 3 take, I mean, they probably won't take that long. Maybe I'll like end stream and then go live again, and we'll just play some Diablo or something for the rest of the night. But for now, we're gonna listen to the story of Hend, the mastermind of Blood River. Sundin was a pleasant town on the complete opposite side of Unden. Judging by the names of the towns, you would think Sundin would be in the north and not the other way around. The people here loved being a part of this community. It was nothing special. Most of us actually lived in Unden before moving down here. That's where we learned to farm, and it helped make the transition an easy one. Unden was known for its vast lands, and Sundin was small in comparison. Though it lacked as much space, it made up for it in the richness of the land. I've experienced farming in both locations, and no land has ever been as easy to farm as Sundin. Having been a town set up after Unden, we joked that Jakari, the elf god himself, blessed these lands, and that's why it was so bountiful. We often talked about the importance of keeping this land safe and special, so we boxed it in with stone walls. We built homes within those walls, and Sundin thrived. It was not a rare sight to see children playing through fields of crops while their parents enjoyed the sun on a beautiful day. There was one river that ran through Sundin, and we cut out a space for it to flow through the stone walls. No matter where you were in Sundin, you could easily take a break from a long day's work and spend some time by the river, cooling off or enjoying a refreshing drink. The water in that river also felt blessed by Jakari. There was something about it that rejuvenated you and just felt right. Have you ever heard a bard or poet recite the Ode to Fenrir? If you have, you must be questioning everything that I'm saying. There is a line in there that goes, "The earth shook, quake, and quiver. Sundin wept into its new red river." That part of the Ode to Fenrir is describing the battle on the top of Mount Shair. But the Red River in Sundin came way after that battle. Ironically, Lord Kazai is to blame either way. People were happy when Lord Kazai took over Onyx. An honorable, near-invincible, and intelligent ruler was exciting, I'll admit. But when that same ruler butters us up with empty promises, it's hard to want to stand beside him. The man who wields Red Nefed, the stalwart leader, he who shook the world. A samurai so untouchable, it is said he can block any attack. When Lord Kazai started his rule, he made his rounds to the towns of Onyx. He promised us safety and help if we needed it. He offered his samurai to be our protectors. We accepted his generosity. Before we knew it, Onyx Knights were stationed in Sundon. The knights that were here loved it. The joy we felt in Sundon was contagious. It was a great place to live and raise a family. Then one day, Ilfor attacked us. You would think we would be safe until the war with Obsidian began. You would expect the God King tyrant of the West, King Ingvar, to be the one we should be afraid of. Instead, it was a group of knights from Ilfor dispatched to cause problems in Onyx. They disguised themselves as Lord Kazai's men and arrived to recruit people in the Onyx army. Some of our citizens were actually willing to give up what a lot of us considered paradise on Fenrir, here in Sundon. As some of us went through the recruitment process, we all lost sight of the fact that these wolves in sheep's clothing were locking and barricading all of our exits from the outside. I was working in the fields, relatively far from where they were recruiting, but even I will never forget the face of the Ilfor knight who stood at the main entrance to Sundon and removed his helmet. Hend, he called himself, named after Hentin, a small fishing town that was wiped out by Morska, the mermaid goddess, for refusing to believe in her. Whether he was alive when that happened, I'm not sure. I doubt it, as he didn't look very old, but I imagine his parents or ancestors were crippled by their lack of faith in Morska and driven by anger for Vorpal, the fishing town that benefited from Morska's blessing instead. Hend explained the truth of what was happening, that they weren't Knights of Onyx at all, that they didn't serve Lord Kazai. He assured us that Lord Kazai wasn't coming to save us, and his knights made short work of Kazai's samurai. As you could imagine, panic ensued. To this day, I can still hear the screams of my neighbors. I can still smell our crops burning as they razed our fields. I remember what it was like to step over brothers, sisters, children. Such a confined space due to the walls, we never expected an attack of this magnitude, and we paid for our ignorance. Paradise doesn't exist. It can't. Not here on Fenrir, at least. This land may have been blessed by Jakari, but we should have known better. Jakari is gone, and with him, his blessings. Lord Kazai, our protector, was somewhere else campaigning for his war. I don't think he even knows Ilfor is responsible for what happened on this day. It fills my heart with hatred. It makes me wish I wasn't an old man, too old to get revenge on Ilfor myself. You might be wondering how I could sit here and tell this tale. I have only one man to thank for that. A man who realized what was happening before anyone else did. His name is Jiru, and he cleared out one of the back exits while all the commotion was happening. Since I was in the field and not as distracted by the fake recruitment process as everyone else, I was able to get far away and avoid the Ilfor knights stationed around the field. The moment I exited the fields, however, I got caught by some Ilfor knights waiting on the outside. Luckily for me, Jiru finished clearing an exit. He used some of our gardening tools to take out one knight, and then disarmed him and took his weapon. Despite lack of combat training, Jiru managed to strike down any other knights there and in our way. I don't know how I kept myself together mentally, as Jiru and I ran as far from Sundon as we could. Neither of us said a word. We reached a large rock formation a few miles from Sundon and hid behind it. Jiru stuck the katana he stole into the ground and sat against the rocks. A I sat beside him, desperately trying to catch my breath from the running. Once that heavy breathing ceased, I leaned my head back and closed my eyes. Tears streamed down my face. I opened my eyes to look at Jiru. He was staring at the katana. He too was crying. Our home was destroyed. His family was gone, as was mine, and the Sundin River ran red with their blood. All right, that's a pretty heavy one, despite me horribly trying to do an old man accent. Or I guess like it's not an accent, but like talk like an old man. You know what I mean? My thought process was there's this guy that's in Mythic Quest, F. Murray Abraham. I wanted to do like a voice like his, but I can't. So that was the result of that one. But yeah, these two characters, these three characters, I should say, Hend, Jiru, and the old man narrating, do pop back up later. I have I believe I have a fantasy short with them planned coming up for season 2. But the story of Jiru features the old man as well, so we'll be getting to that on the next stream. I believe that's coming up in Fantasy Distraction 43. So definitely next stream we'll be revisiting Jiru and the old man that narrates that story. As for Hend has popped up a few times in our fantasy distractions throughout. He's the one responsible for enslaving Natalie and her people. So Hend is definitely going to be relevant later. Not so much during the wartime stuff, but like once the wartime stuff is done, any stuff we do on Fenrir, especially anything involving Ilfor, he's kind of like their general, I guess you would say, of their army. So if Ilfor is involved in anything, he will be there for sure. But he's more than likely a villain for Natalie's story, if she makes it back to Fenrir, because that's kind of what we built up in her second story, was Hend seeing her off to Sabia and her guaranteeing that if she came back, she was going to burn Ilfor to the ground. So we will have some loose ends to tie up between those two in the future, but I haven't really fleshed that out or written that stuff yet, because that's kind of not tied into the main storyline that we're focusing on for season 2. So we will get to that eventually, but for now they're kind of just filling in some side story gaps. But yeah, that's a pretty good one, pretty dark. Pretty happy with that one. All right, this Eden one. Oh, it's me with some additional voices from Sasselia. I thought this one was just Sasselia, but it's actually me with. She just plays Eden in this one. All right, so we'll listen to this one, then we'll talk about this. This one isn't too dark, I don't think. I think this one was meant to be lighthearted. I can't remember all the details, but I'm pretty sure it's lighthearted. Definitely not as dark as the last one. That's for sure. All right. So this one is Eden and her journey to Vesuva. But it's not told by Eden. It's told by a character that I will be voicing. And Cecilia will be playing Eden whenever she has voice lines. All right. Listen to this and then we'll talk about it. I still remember the day Eden stepped into Vesuva. My brother and I were preparing for a fishing trip, our first one in a few months. It was pretty uncommon for people to fish around Vesuva, because it was way more popular in Vorpal. Considering Vesuva was a place most people would gather, it was often just a stop on the way to another continent, or on the way to Vorpal itself. My brother and I liked that most people went to Vorpal instead. It meant more fish for us. The day before our trip, we noticed some rats had gone into the closet where we stored our nets and chewed through them, so I made my way to one of the local weavers to see if they could help us. We always preferred catching them with nets instead of rods, but if we had to use the rods, we would. At least there was a backup. Luckily for us, the weaver was able to help. I left him the information of what we needed and some coins, and he told me to return in the morning before we set sail. I recall stepping out of his shop and literally letting out a sigh of relief. I felt pretty dumb, because let's be real, who does that? I'm just a simple Fennin man, so I guess something like this would lift a bit of a burden off my shoulders. But letting out an actual sigh of relief over something like this sounds like some dramatic emphasis you would hear about in a story. My time thinking about how stupid I was brief, as a woman walked right into me. The corner of the weaver's shop was a bit tight, so I don't think it was her fault.
I'm sorry. I'm in a bit of a rush.
I stepped aside and told her it wasn't a problem. It was hard to tell the age of the woman. She was short with very light blonde hair, blue eyes, and wore a thick, solid bracelet on each wrist. One was white and one was red, a color scheme that matched the dress she was wearing. People come and go all day, every day, in Vesuva, but despite the ships that dock and depart on a daily basis, it's pretty rare to see someone in that much of a rush. It must have been a matter of life or death. Apparently bracelets weren't the only fashionable accessory the woman wore. I noticed a hairpin on the ground that must have shook loose when she bumped into me. I picked it up off the ground and turned to look for her, but she wasn't even in my sights anymore. Though I live a pretty normal life, I'm a bit of a nerd when it comes to artifacts and fashions of different locations on Fenrir. I recognized the symbol of the hairpin, a flower they called the Fey Dandelion. It was a symbol most commonly used in the town of Asgard. I slowly made my way back to my home, excited to share the news with my brother that we'll be able to use nets on our trip, and keeping an eye out for the woman so I could return the hairpin. You can imagine the look on my face as I heard some commotion in one of the nearby buildings. I peered through a window that was eye level with me and saw the same woman leaning over a bed and casting healing magic. It really was a matter of life or death. I patiently waited as she healed a man laying in the bed. The man's family gathered around as if this could be his final moments. A few minutes passed, and the woman backed away slowly. The man sat up in his bed. His family was amazed, as was I. They smiled and cried. They hugged each other, and they gave thanks to the woman for saving his life. I clenched the hairpin tightly in my hand, as I brought a finger up to remove a tear escaping down my cheek. "You're her," I said when she walked out of the house. "Eden, the healer of Asgard." She blushed at my words and nodded. I explained that she dropped her hairpin and she thanked me for bringing it to her. Strangely enough, she asked which way I was going, and I pointed in the direction of my house. She started walking that way and I followed her. We talked the entire way back to my home. I did have a lot of questions. Tales of Eden's journey across Fenrir reached far and wide, and I couldn't believe she was walking beside me. I asked her many questions about her stops along the way to Vesuva. I wanted to know what it was like to heal people and save lives. The walk back to my house felt way too short, and I wanted to ask her more. Instead, when we got to my house, she began asking questions about me. We sat on the stairs in front of my home for hours, just talking. She was almost as interested in my boring everyday life as I was in her exciting, fulfilling, and miraculous one. Our house was close to one of the docks, and I couldn't help but notice her stare out every time a ship passed by. "Are you thinking about leaving?" I asked. "Is this the final stop on your journey?" It wouldn't be surprising if it wasn't the final stop, but rather time for her to go see if the other continents needed her magic.
I think about leaving Fenrir a lot. Go to Isla or Sevilla, somewhere where no one knows me and I can start over.
She looked down and played with one of her bracelets.
I talk myself out of it every time because I know people need me here. But now that I'm in Vesuva and there are all these ships coming in and out of the port, it's the most tempting it's ever been.
Then why not spend some time here instead, I recommended.
Stay in Vesuva?
She looked up at me as she questioned it. Why not? You don't need to go from town to town to look for people to heal. There are a lot of people right here in Vesuva that need patching up all the time. That guy whose life you saved, there are people coming in from the other continents sick all the time. I pleaded my case as best I could. It probably sounded a bit selfish, but the idea of having Eden in Vesuva for a while sounded like it would be nice. She had this calming aura about her that just made you feel safe and at peace. It was hard to tell if I got through to her, but the way our conversation was going made her feel some type of way as she put her hand on my knee and thanked me for returning her hairpin. She also thanked me for the conversation. I tried to play it cool. The pleasure was mine, I said, accompanied by a goofy smile. Eden blushed again and walked off. I didn't think I would ever see her again. My brother and I went on our fishing trip. We were out on the Fen Seas for roughly 2 days and came back with a pretty impressive haul of fish, if I do say so myself. When we docked and I got off the boat, I saw a woman looking out to sea on the dock across from Mars. It was Eden. I did not expect to see you still here in Vesuva, I said. Something keeping you here? She kept looking off into the distance, the vast Fen Seas in front of her.
I used to think my journey on the main continent would end here. That I would get on one of these boats, never look back, and start a more normal life.
And now?
Now I think my journey ended the moment I stepped in Vesuva. And a new, way more important one has just begun.
All right, so this one is, this one's a little lighthearted, a little cheesy. It's a little cheesy, but it's also very important though, because the character narrating and Eden's relationship is really important to the future of Fantasy Distractions. I'm trying to think of how much I revealed up to this point. Story-wise, if you've read everything or listened to everything, I should say, that's been released, then you know. If you know, you know. I guess I don't want to spoil anything if people watch this without watching the other stuff first. So we'll just leave it at that. I'll just keep it really vague because it's just meant to be a cheesy story that sets up very important things later. But I'm not gonna reveal too much about that one. Our last one is also kind of lighthearted. I think it's pretty lighthearted overall. This one's gonna be voiced by Jake. It's all about Desiree, who is a barmaid in Vorpal. Vorpal and Vesuva, I was actually just writing about them in some of the stories that we're doing for season 2, but they're almost like sister towns in a way, in a sense that they're not near each other. Like Vorpal is far to the south, kind of like a little closer to the Deadlands, I guess you could say. It's like the last town between like the safe towns, I guess, and the Deadlands. And it kind of acts as like this melting pot of people, and like it's more like a vacation-y kind of spot. Like people go there just to like visit, or like get information, or just chill in like some taverns and stuff. Then they have the Morska festival, so it's really just like a gathering place. Like if you were to do a D&D campaign here, it would be like where the tavern is that people meet. Like Desiree is a barmaid in like the most popular tavern there. People do live there, but it's more of like a place that you kind of just pass through. And it's also like a neutral town, which is very important going into season 2. But it's not like ruled by Onyx or Obsidian or Ilfor or anything like that. It's its own thing, And then Vesuva, which is on the northern side of the continent, is kind of like similar, but it's more for like adventurers and people like that. because it's like this gathering place that is connected to the main port on Fenrir. So, excuse me, boats and things pass through there, like was mentioned in this one. Like, that's why the narrator's asking Eden, like, are you leaving the main continent to, bring your healing elsewhere? Like, have you accomplished everything that you did here? Like, what's the deal, basically? But because it's also like the main area that's connected to like the trade routes on the sea, on the Fen Seas, and like the main way to get to Isla and Sabia and stuff like that, it is kind of like this safe haven for adventurers, but also like a place where a lot of people live. Like the narrator is living there and enjoying it. The other story we had that took place here was our 5th ever fantasy distraction about Eliana. Ironically, I am currently writing an episode for season 2 with Eliana in it. That's the next story that I have to write for that, actually. But her story was in Vesuva as well, and she lives there, and she's like this, sought after beauty that people talk about all the time. But she's in Vesuva specifically because she wants to experience like her own adventures and stuff, and Vesuva is just kind of like that place that is known for that, So it's important to kind of like world build Vesuva a little bit here, as well as set up the stuff that I had to set up for with Eden and the narrator of the story. But I know I kind of just went off on places and not so much the story. But again, I don't want to spoil too much that goes into the story for anybody that isn't caught up or anything like that. Okay. We got one left, and it's all about Desiree, and it's going to talk about on some of that stuff that I was just speaking about with Vorpal, and introduce a pretty important character going into season 2. So this will definitely not be the last story about Desiree. She will have a pretty early impact on season 2 coming up. So let's listen to it, and then we'll talk about it.
You can trace the origins of many adventurers on Fenrir to the town of Vorpal, more specifically to an establishment that acts as both an inn and a pub, the Sea Tides. Passed on from person to person, the Sea Tides has been run by many different owners, but its own origin dates back before any living Fenin can remember. Documentation is scarce on its beginnings, and many Fenins like to theorize that it was one of the first places made by the mermaid goddess Morska. If you know about Morska and her connection to Vorpal, then you know she is the primary goddess worshipped here. The culmination of that worship comes in the form of the Morska Festival, a yearly event dedicated to the mermaid. A while back, the gods and goddesses on Fenrir suddenly disappeared and have been missing ever since. But Vorpal never stopped worshipping Morska. There are a few reasons why, mostly tied to tradition, but also tied to the fact that Morska once presented herself to the town of Vorpal and swore that as long as they worshipped her, she would ensure that Vorpal thrived. It was common to see a Vorpal citizen wear a small mermaid-scale brooch somewhere on their clothing as a tribute to the missing goddess. Desiree, a barmaid in the Sea Tides, was no exception. Having lived her whole life in Vorpal and working almost her entire life in the Sea Tides, wearing the brooch felt right, as Morska blessed her with good fortune. Barmaids in the Sea Tides and even owners come and go, but for the last 23 years, Desiree has been everyone's favorite. She started working at the Sea Tides when she was 15. In her youth, she thrived with accuracy and hard work, and as she aged, she only got more and more popular with the patrons. She has one of the most impressive memories any barmaid has ever possessed, and would remember you even if you only came to the bar once or twice. Over time, Desiree developed a bit of a mother-like presence within the bar, and she knew how to make everyone feel welcomed. Though she wasn't the owner, she practically ran the place and was able to make some pretty big decisions even without the owner's input. If you came off the streets or entered Vorpal with very little money, Desiree would do her best to help you get back on your feet. This was the case with two travelers who recently made their way to Vorpal. One was a once very sought-after mercenary named Jack, who vanished for years inside the Deadlands only to be one of the few people to re-emerge and re-enter Fenrir. Though he kept to himself, and no one knew the true story of how he escaped the Deadlands, or even got into the Deadlands to begin with, Jack had always heard rumors of the sea tides, and figured it would be a good place to stop to figure things out. The person he was traveling with was a young girl named Anna. Anna had survived a horrific attack on the orphanage she grew up in within the town of Reddick. She was the only survivor, in fact, as a group of Obsidian Knights ravaged her town. Had it not been for Jack arriving as somewhat of a guardian angel, she would also be dead. Jack got them a table and some drinks before getting as much information from Desiree as possible. Jack had been through a lot, and survived a lot, but he had never taken care of a young girl before. He lucked out the day he met Desiree. A remarkable memory and a mother-like warmth weren't Desiree's only admirable qualities. She was also very, very perceptive. She knew right away that Jack had no idea what he was going to do to help raise this girl. Jack stood at the counter waiting for Desiree to help another customer, then ordered some food. You can strike down anyone that gets in your way, or hers, but everything else is confusing to you, isn't it? Jack didn't realize she was talking to him at first. "Excuse me," he replied. "Forgive me if I'm overstepping any boundaries. It just appears to me that you're not sure how to help the girl you're traveling with." Jack hesitated, unsure if he should delve too deep into his or Anna's affairs. "You can tell all of that just by looking at us." Desiree finished preparing some food for Jack and Anna. It wasn't anything fancy, since this wasn't really a restaurant. She pushed her hair from her face and grinned as she presented the plates to him. "When you've been helping run a bar like this for as long as I have, it's easy to tell what people are going through and dealing with." "Sounds like magic I don't want any part of." Jack grabbed the plates and made his way to their table. He put one plate down in front of Anna and sat with his own. Desiree grabbed a large stein and made her way around the counter. She filled up both of their cups before leaning over to Jack's ear. "When you're ready to ask for some help to get on your feet, let me know. I think I can help you both." Desiree could hear Anna say, "She seems nice," as she walked away. It wouldn't take long for Jack to ask Desiree where they could stay the night for cheap, and for Desiree to offer them a room free of charge. It also wouldn't take long for Desiree to become a pivotal part in helping keep Anna safe. Desiree herself wasn't sure what made her want to help Anna so badly, or what made her trust Jack, but she knew it was important that she did both. The sea tides and its customers meant everything to her, but what made these two stand out so much? What about their adventure differed from the others? She could feel something grander at play here, like the mermaid goddess returned somehow and gave her a mission. Over the next few months, Desiree would help point Jack in the right direction, and act as a mother-like guardian to Anna, as she tries to navigate her way through Fenrir.
Alrighty, not too bad. We got through those pretty quick. I looked at like my last recap type stream, and it was like 4 hours long, but we just got through like all 10 in like 2. I mean, I guess there wasn't like too much to really dive into with these. What is pretty interesting, I had like mentioned not wanting to say like who saved Anna from the orphanage earlier, but I didn't realize I just explain it here in this one that Jack saved her. But what's interesting is I didn't realize like how connected these set of 10 stories are. Maybe not all of them, but like at least like 5 within this 10 are like directly connected. Before I dive into that too much, obviously just want to point out that Jake did amazing, of course. Every reading he does for us is outstanding, and this is no exception, but I don't want to like not mention that and take away from that at all, because incredible reading, of course. But I just thought it was interesting, like and it's pretty funny because like the ones that aren't connected to like the Jack story like are also kind of connected. Like it's either like Deadland stuff or Jack and Anna stuff. So pretty interesting. Obviously we opened with Zayla. That was kind of disconnected from everything for the most part. But then it's Snidgy's story, which takes place in the Deadlands. Maz's story, which is a little disconnected. Grex, which is the story of the attack on the orphanage that, you know, ties into Anna. The Sade story kind of isn't connected, and the Melody one is just like a recap. The Rigi one is back to the Deadlands. The Hen one is more Onyx stuff. So like everything in this set is like pretty connected. Then the Eden story and then Desiree. So we did kind of like within this 10 kind of touch on a lot of the things I was dancing around to avoid spoilers. So I mean, at least it'll all be bundled up into this one stream kind of thing. But yeah, the next time we do this, which will probably be next Friday, I'm trying to shoot for like Friday nights kind of being our fantasy distraction night, because Fridays are going to become the new day that we release the main fantasy distractions. I'm not sure when we'll do the shorts. The shorts might still end up being Wednesdays. But I would like to release those like after. So whenever we start doing the shorts, like the first one will land after the halfway point of fantasy distractions. So whenever the 25th fantasy distraction comes out, that short will, the first one of the shorts will follow or come before. I don't know. I got to figure it out. But we'll line it up like that. The way I did it last time was the shorts wrapped up about a week or two before the main fantasy distractions wrapped up. So that's what I'll shoot for again. Like, I feel like the fantasy shorts season should end before the main fantasy distractions, because the main ones are typically like those like beefier part of the story. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's interesting because I could actually like preview the next ones we're going to talk about because they're done. When I was doing the original recap streams, we had not released those yet. And as I had mentioned earlier, we did a lot of things kind of on the fly. So I probably didn't even know what all of the next 10 were going to be at that time. But since they're all out at this time, which season 2 will be a lot different as well, because season 2 I am writing now and it comes out next month, and I'm trying to get as much of it written and recorded before next month. So I will actually know what's coming when we do the recap streams for that. So maybe during the recap streams I can preview what stories are coming, to give people a little more incentive maybe to tune into the streams, or just to kind of set us up and let people know what's coming. But that's basically going to be it for this stream. I might end this stream, take a little break, maybe get like a snack or something, see what my niece is up to, because I hear her, she's still up. And then I might come back and restart the stream and maybe play a little Diablo. We'll see what's happening. But Matt sent me this voice line I needed for this teaser that I'm trying to put together for season 2, and I really want to slap that together. So maybe we'll do that, and maybe I can do that before I go live again, and maybe we can preview that together, because the teaser's done. I just need to put in that one line from Matt. So if I could get that file cooked up and ready, maybe we could watch it together on stream before I release it on YouTube and social media and everywhere, probably on Monday. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Next time we will be talking about the Orion story, which was FD 41, Angelica, which is FD 42, the Jiru story, that will be the continuation of the characters we met in the Hen story, the Alicia story, which is narrated by Mike, aka Blue Wolfie. I don't think he changed his, I thought he changed his name, but I think it's still Blue Wolf. That story is amazing. I actually just recently listened to that one. Unrelated to everything else. Like, I just felt like listening to it, and Mike did a really good job with that one, so that'll be a good one. Indra and Faye, which is a really dark one. We got the Dr. Callan story coming up, which is more Starlight Samurai connected stuff. We got Sir Kinnan Mint coming up, which is a story written by Derpy and voiced by Derpy and Zaff, which is really, really good. I just recently re-listened to that one as well. And we got the 2-part wrapping up of Kai and Maz's story, which is the Showdown in Oasis Part 1 and 2, which I was talking about earlier, that I'm really, really excited to listen to on stream and break down, because that one was really fun to do. And then we have the wrap up of season 1, which is Fantasy Distraction number 50, which is Muna, who's like a seer. And it really, really sets up a lot of stuff that's coming up in season 2. It was meant to be a preview of when we were going to do the audio play format, but we're no longer doing the audio play format. But we will like dabble with that format a little bit in season 2, especially in the beginning. I think episode 3 is going to be like basically what season 2 could have been, and also possibly set up what we may do in the future. Maybe once we could get the channel to actually like take off and be successful. And we can utilize a bit more resources to get people a little more involved and able to actually record that stuff for us. Because the biggest problem with the audio play stuff was just getting the recordings done. And also the way that I wrote it probably wasn't the best. I think if I were to do it over, I would have just put all of the narration on me and let everybody else just voice the characters. What I tried to do was I tried to get people to narrate the episodes based on who the story was focused on. So like Sasselia voices Anna. So like if there was like a major Anna storyline, I had Sasselia narrate those stories as well as play Anna in those stories. And I think overall it became a little overwhelming for most of the people involved, especially because I can't pay everybody a lot. So I think it was just like too much work. So if I could go back in time and do that over, I probably would have just been like, hey, just voice the characters and I'll narrate everything. So if we return to that style and we're not like a huge success at that point, I will probably do it that way. I will probably just narrate everything and have everybody voice. But yeah, we don't really know. At the moment, we're just gonna go back to regular. Yo, XX alien _ robot. What's up? How's it going? Yeah, so that's kind of where we're at. Like, I don't think we're gonna attempt the audio play thing anytime soon again. It kind of flopped and really slowed us down. in the way that like the execution. Like we never really released anything to say that like it flopped like viewership wise or like people didn't like it. It was more like putting it together was harder than we anticipated. And because we tried to do that, it kind of set us back like almost an entire year. But we're finally at the point where I'm just back to writing the second season the way we did the first season. And hopefully people like it. And we can get back to releasing things a bit more consistently. I'm doing well. Thanks for asking. Just looking over what I wrote. Nice. How's everyone doing? We're doing pretty good. We actually, we were just recapping basically episode 31 through 40 of a YouTube series that I do called Fantasy Distractions. We just kind of wrapped up going over that. And then I was actually going to just like end stream and then go live again and just play some video games. But I will be doing this again next week. Next Friday, we'll be reviewing FD number 41 through 50. And then after that, we're going to probably do the same thing for Fantasy Shorts, which is a little separate thing we were doing on our channel. But yeah, if you hear my niece running, she's running around and yelling in the other room. But yeah, we do standalone stories on YouTube that I started writing during the pandemic, and then we have this underlying storyline that carries over throughout all of them. So in other words, like you could watch any one of them. It doesn't have to be number one. Like you don't have to go in order. You could watch number 1 on, or you could watch from like number 15 on. Every story stands on its own. But if you watch everything, there's like Easter eggs and characters that pop up in other storylines and things like that. And then there's like there's an underlying story that is going to tie into a lot of the stuff we're doing in season 2. That if you watch everything, it kind of makes a lot more sense. But it's not necessary to watch everything to get the full story. But we're getting ready to do our second season. We kind of took a long time off and just released a bunch of one-shots. And now we're back to releasing our next like full-fledged season coming up in May. So I was doing recap streams every 10 weeks. And then I didn't do them for the 40th week or the 50th week. But I want to do them for the new season coming out. So I'm trying to catch up on the ones that I didn't get to recap and talk about like behind the scenes stuff for that I didn't do for the first season. So that way these recap streams are kind of there for people who go back and watch them after season 2 comes out. So that's pretty much where we're at. And that is probably where I'm going to wrap this up. But I might be back in a little while. I'm going to take a little break and then maybe come back and do a gaming stream. But thank you to everyone that watched. Please go subscribe to Fantasy Distractions on YouTube. Follow this channel if you feel like it. And I see that Alien Robot followed. Thank you for the follow. Why did that notification not go off? If I'm on this, I think if I'm on this scene, my notifications don't go off. That's awkward. I gotta set that up so that the source pops up on the screen. Thank you for the follow, though. It's supposed to be a notification. Let me see if I go to. Why didn't that play? Hold on, I'm gonna swap to my main scene and try that again. I just jump scared myself because I had my volume all the way up for the Fantasy Distractions. And I just jump scared myself. Get wrecked. Outplayed. I outplayed myself. You're too cool for a notification. True. Yeah, well, that you just helped me fix something in my stream by following while I was on that scene. I gotta add my my alerts to to when I'm in between. I didn't even realize that wasn't on. That's so weird. I would think it would still like go off. It's weird. All right, I'll fix that while I'm while my stream is down, and then I'll come back. But thank you so much for that follow. Definitely go check us out on YouTube. Fantasy Distractions on YouTube. We're hoping to make that into something. I mean, we've been doing it for like we did it for 1 year pretty straight. Like we did one story a week for 50 weeks, and then we also added in fantasy shorts for 25 weeks. So we actually did 75 short stories over the course of 50 weeks for the first season. And then we kind of like, because we were trying to do an audio play switch thing, we lost like a year of content. So I'm trying to make up for that with season 2. So we're coming back strong next month with season 2. So hopefully we can get the channel to take off. We only have about 340-ish subscribers. And we definitely don't have the watch hours to monetize. So I'm trying to do some more streams to push it, and I'm trying to get it in front of the right people so that we can hopefully turn it into something something bigger than what it is right now. But thank you guys so much for watching. I'm going to turn off the stream. I might be back in a few minutes to play some probably Diablo 3 because I can't wait for Diablo 4. But thank you guys. And as far as Fantasy Distractions goes, we will be back next Friday with the 41 through 50 recap. And then we'll do some more recap streams after that. And maybe do some writing prompts live. And I have some other ideas for Fantasy Distractions related streams coming up in May. So stay tuned for that. And I will see you guys next time. Peace.